The day is here and your Beak Boutique has finally arrived. And when it comes to your door, it's going to arrive in 5 different boxes, each one labeled for the different stages of the building process. I also have the 6th box for the chicken math extension because we all know when we go out to pick up 6 chickens, we always come home with 9. You should also receive a final box, which is a chicken feeder and waterer, which comes complimentary with every Beak Boutique. In box number 1, we have everything that we need in order to start the build. Opening it up, we have a smaller box full of the connections and some helpful tools. Each connection is individually bagged. We have some tie wraps or some zip ties, some gloves to keep your hands protected, some cutters to finalize the assembly and make everything look crisp and clean, as well as some anchors to help keep your chicken run supported to the ground. If you're adding on the chicken math extension kit, you'll want to open that box as well. And inside, there's going to be pieces for various stages of this project. And before you begin, make sure you find the perfect location to put your chicken run. Remember, the Beak Boutique is 9 feet wide and 6 foot deep by itself. And if you add one of the extensions, it adds another 3 additional feet, making it 9 by 9. To lay out the foundation, we're going to be using 3 different pieces. A corner piece, which has 3 different connectors with 3 holes. A center support, which looks like a T. And this very special piece right here, which is your door stop. The door is going to be opening from right to left, and it's going to sit right in the middle of your chicken run. So what you want to do is lay out your 4 corner pieces in 6 T's to create the general shape of the foundation. Now that our base is laid out, we're going to install the foundation, and it's very simple. You just need these tube click connections, and they just snap into each one of the holes right here. So you'll take your tube, you'll press down this button, and snaps right into place. My foundation is complete, and this is what the general layout looks like. Now that our foundation is complete, we are going to start to build the walls of the chicken run. And you may notice that there are some panels that are left in box 1. These are going to make up the walls of the chicken run. But first we need to open box 2 in order to get more tube and click connection supports in order to build the physical walls. Then later on we will install the wall panels. In box number 2, we will find the pieces to build the actual structure of the walls. We have more of these tube and click connections. We have a hinge for our door, and we also have pieces that will create the door once the walls are assembled. Additionally, there are some tools. We have a screwdriver and some hardware, as well as latches for the door. To start the construction of the walls, we will take all of our tube connections and insert them into all of the vertical pieces of the foundation. It's important to note when installing the door, there are 2 special tube and snap type connections. One of them has a hinge. And remember that this specialty piece right here is a door stop, which means the hinge will be on the opposite side. So our hinge will snap right into place, and this will make up the bottom portion of the door. On the other side, this piece right here is where our hardware for our latch will attach. And we want that to point toward the outside of the chicken run. And we'll put that right here. So now when we install our door, it will hang into place just like this, and you'll see where the latch will attach. The first stage of the wall construction is complete. Now we're going to add the second layer of the wall, which is going to make the structure much more durable and rigid. For this, we're going to be using 3 different pieces. For the internal connections, we will be using this cross connection. For the corners, we will be using this corner connection. And for the door frame, we'll be using these T connections. Let's start off with the door frame using these T connections. Since the door will be sitting right here, the inside will be nice and flush, which means our T-connections will be pointing out toward the ends of the chicken run. 1 and 2. Next, we'll install the 4 corner connections, which go in the corner of the chicken run. And make sure that you're installing them in the proper orientation, so that way they click in. The tubes are pointing toward the other corners. And lastly, we will install the cross connections, which will attach to all of the remaining upright posts. To finalize the structure of the first layer of the walls, we will use the tube and click connections to connect all of the upright vertical pieces. Now that the first layer of wall supports is complete, we will then open box 3 in order to install the second layer of wall supports. Let's start off with the door frame. Just like the first layer, there will be a hinge tube and click connection in box number 3, which will go right here, right above the other hinge. And there will also be another connection with a piece to attach the latch for the top part of the door, and that will go right here, right above the other door latch. For all of the other vertical pieces, it will be the normal tube and click connections. Now we are going to install the connectors that will allow us to attach the roof to the walls. And for this, we'll be using 4 different types of connections. The first, and there's only one of these, this will be used as the door stop. We have another cross connection that will have to be installed in a particular location. A corner piece, which will go in the 4 corners with this piece facing upward to attach the roof. And a similar but different cross piece, which has a shorter connection here that also needs to be placed in our particular location. Let's start out with our door stop. This is meant to stop the door, and it will be installed right above where our latches are going to connect. There should be 3 remaining cross connections. The first one will be installed right at the door to finish up the door frame. And the other 2 will be installed directly behind it at the back of the chicken run. Next, we can install the corner pieces, and just like previous steps, we want to install it so that way the tubes are facing the other corners. Make sure you install it so the pin is facing the other side wall, not the front or the back. This will allow us to connect the roof connections later on. Now lastly, these 2 roof connection crosses will be installed on the outside walls, not on the wall where the door is or the one that is behind it, specifically on the outside walls. Just like we did for the first layer of walls, we will connect all of the connection pieces together with the tube and click connections. For this, you will need to open up box 4 to get the remaining 2 pieces and finalize the wall structure. Now it's time to install the frame of the roof, and all of these materials will come out of box number 4. Let's start out with these 4 smaller tube and click connection pieces. They're going to be installed right above the door as well as on the back wall. So let's do those first. Right above the door and also along or on the back wall. These are the only places that these tube connections will actually hook into. And if you're vertically challenged like I am, now might be the time for you to grab a ladder. The roof is going to have 3 different support pieces, 1 in the front, 1 in the back, which is the exact same, and then 1 in the middle, which will also support the center support post. To create the roof line or the ridge of the roof, we will have to connect a few pieces together. And we're going to be making 2 of these. One will go at the front of the chicken run and one will go at the back. We'll start off with this piece here, which is the very top of the ridge line, which will extend a tube from the front to the back of the chicken run. That will go in the middle. Then we will have these support pieces with a piece coming down that will attach to those smaller sections that we just installed in the previous step. That'll go on either side of the ridge line. Make sure the holes are facing toward the center of the chicken run. This will allow the pins to slide into place here and here. And then we will have 2 of these corner pieces, which will allow us to attach the ridge line to the walls of the chicken run. And those will go right here. Again, we're going to be making 2 of these, one for the front and one for the back. Now we will assemble the center roof ridge, which will support the support beam. We will start off with the center piece, which you will notice has a post going down to support the support post. We will attach our click tube connections on either side. Make sure that we are attaching them to the long extension piece, not the short sides, which will run from forward to backward. And then we will add on the pieces similar to the other ridges that will allow us to connect the ridge line to the chicken run walls. Now we will install the roof supports on top of the walls. And remember, these pieces that have the center supports will be installed on the center of the chicken run. Start by going to one side and attaching it into place, allowing it to bend over, and then going to the other side immediately before installing any other sections. The front and back roof supports actually have 4 connections. They'll attach to the walls as well as right over the door or right over the back of the chicken run. To make installation simpler, make sure you install the 2 center pieces first, because it's going to make the structure very rigid. Try to install these at the exact same time, or at least just slide them down onto the snapping portions. And then we'll install the 2 ends. And I'll repeat for the back. Now that the roof lines are installed, we will connect them all together with our tube and click connections. Now that the roof structure is complete, we're going to be installing the center support posts, which also supports the roosting bars. So for this, you're going to break out box 5. I have one already set up behind me because I have the Chicken Math extension kit installed, but the process is the exact same to install either center support post. So in box 5, you will find a base, this connection piece, which allows you to connect the base to the support posts, 2 roosting bars, a nut. Make sure you grab your Allen key from the hardware kit, and you'll have 3 different posts, 2 of which will have these special pieces right here, which the roosts will physically sit on. And the nice feature is that you can orient them in either way, so that way you can have the roosts at different heights. And then you'll also have this smaller tube and click connection, which will connect the 2 roosting support posts together. So let's construct it. First, we're going to start with our base, and we are going to use this bolt, which is going to go into the bottom of the base. And then we will take this connection piece, and notice that it has a little ridge in here, which it will fit right into. So you'll know that it fits when you twist it and it doesn't move. We'll go back on the bottom and we'll use our Allen key to just tighten this bolt down. Just make sure it's hand tight. You don't want to over tighten it, just like that. And then we'll put that down on the ground. And while you're doing this, you want to try to find it aligned right underneath that center roof support post. Now I'm going to start off with installing one of my roosting bars. And since I have younger chickens, I want the first roost to be relatively low to the ground. So I'm going to flip this roosting support post over and click it in, just like all of our other connections. And I'm going to put my first roost over top, just like that. Now I'm going to take my connection, tube and click connection, the one that does not have the special lip where the roost will sit on, and I'll put that right on top. Now, before I install the second roost support post, I want to put the other roost on the post first. It's going to make it a lot easier to install, and then we can click in this connection. The very last thing is we have to install or attach the post to the roof connection. The easiest way to do this is to ensure that your post is in the center of your chicken run. And once it's centered, all you need to do is gently lift up the roof, hold down that button, and then slip the roof connection right on top. Now your center post is installed, and you can go ahead and tighten up your roosts in your preferred position. The main structure is complete and we're almost done. Now it's time to install the side panels, the roofing panels, and the floor panels to really make this chicken run predator proof. And there are a few different types of panels that I'm going to talk about before we install them, because the installation process is really simple. The first panel that's going to go around the base of our chicken run has a mixture of small and large mesh. On the top here, it is this large rectangular mesh, and towards the bottom, we have much smaller mesh to prevent any predators from digging or finding their way in. These are going to go along the bottom of the chicken run with the smaller mesh closest to the ground. Next, we have two larger mesh panels. And if you've noticed, one is slightly smaller than the other. This one, it's kind of hard to see. This one right here is shorter than this other mesh panel. This shorter panel is going to be saved for the roof. Then you have these larger, almost square mesh panels. These are going to be for the second layer of the chicken run, as well as for the bottom of the chicken run. Next, we have the second roofing panel. And when you open the box, you probably thought this panel was either bent or damaged, but it's purposefully bent this way in order to fall along the connection of the roof where the roof meets the wall. So it'll sit right on the roof, just like that, predator proofing the top of the chicken run. And lastly, we have two more panels for the front and the back of the chicken run. This eave panel, which looks just like this, which is going to go right at the top of the chicken run, as well as these smaller angled pieces, which will go right here and right there. Now that we understand all of the different panels that we will use in order to predator proof our chicken run, I'll show you how to install each individual one. So it's time to break out the zip ties. These are what we're going to use in order to install each one of our panels to the structure of the chicken run. I'm going to start at the bottom and I'm going to work my way up. So again, here is our bottom panel. We have that finer mesh which is going to go on the bottom of the chicken run. And when you're installing these, make sure you're putting about 2 tie wraps or zip ties on each one of the supports. So 2 on the top, 2 on the sides, 2 on the bottom. And you could put more if you want to secure it, but I would loosely install every single one of your panels with 2 wraps per each piece of the structure before you tighten everything up, because one, you want to make sure that you have enough zip ties in order to install all of the panels, and then you can tighten up any of the connections after every single one of the panels is installed. So that way you get the look that you want, it's nice and secure, and it's going to create the best result overall for your chicken run. The second layer of the wall panels is pretty much the same as the first. Just make sure that you're using the right panel. And also, before you install it, make sure that you're orienting your panel the right way. The bottom of the chicken run, or the bottom panel here, has the rectangles running parallel to the ground. So make sure that you install the second panel in this orientation and not like this, so that way it looks symmetric all the way up. Again, we're going to get our panel into place just like this. You see how it fits perfectly in between our supports, and we'll apply at least 2 zip ties to the top, bottom, and the sides. I would recommend getting one of your zip ties and looping it through the panel and then coming around the top of the chicken run support. And then once you get that first one on, it makes it a lot easier to install the rest. When you're installing the top and bottom panels for the door, it's important to note that you will have this little piece right here, which is where your latches are going to connect to. So when you install these panels, make sure that you're installing them on the inside of the chicken run, so that way we'll be able to install the latches on the front. And again, make sure these panels, you're not fully tightening them down. Make sure you're attaching them loosely, so that way we'll have some room to work with for the bolts and the nuts of the latch. For all of your roofing panels, you're going to need a ladder. It's going to make it so much easier and safer to install. So if you need to go get one, pause the video, go get your ladder, come back, and I'll be here where we left off. All right, so the first piece I'm going to install is this triangular section right here. So you should have 4 of these pieces, 2 for the front and 2 for the back. Again, what I like to do is just loop my zip tie through it and then install the top one first. Loop this right around here, and it's gonna make it a lot easier for the rest of them to be installed. Again, put at least 2 on the top, 2 on the bottom. You'll only be able to fit 1 zip tie over here, but you could fit 2 right here. Next is the eave of the chicken run, and the piece looks just like this, almost like a miniature version of the chicken run itself. And this piece will fit just like that right in here. For this one, you're going to need to use more zip ties just based off of the shape. I would go with 2 here, 2 here, 2 on the right, 2 on the left, and at least 3 of them on the bottom to make it nice and structurally sound. Remember, when you're installing these panels, don't over tighten your zip ties right away. Make sure that you get all of your zip ties on first and get these pieces in the general orientation that you want, and then you can come around and tighten them all down at the very end, because you want to make sure that you're filling these gaps as best you can to really predator proof your chicken run. Now we're going to install the first of the 2 roof panels. And remember, this is the one that is bent purposefully, which is going to lay right along the line right here, where the wall meets the roof. Now I've actually found this easiest to install from the inside of the chicken run. So what we're going to do is position our panel so that way the edge sits right in between, just like this. So now you could see how this bent piece predator proofs the edge of where the wall meets the roof. What I'm going to do now is allow it to just rest on the structure, because what I want to do is install these zip ties right here where these panels connect to the roof first. Again, make sure you don't over tighten them, install them loosely, and go for the second little box here from the top. This is going to make it a lot easier for the rest of the panel to be installed, because it's going to hold it in place. So now that I have these 2 zip ties installed, I can tighten them down so that will stay in position, and then I can come back and apply some zip ties to the wall line right here. You can see just how well those 2 zip ties are just holding this panel in place. Now I could take 2 more and attach it to the wall supports. And we're done. So a little complicated, but not unmanageable. Our last roof panel is these smaller panels, but we're going to start by attaching this panel to the roof ridge right here. Once we install it to here, it's going to make it a lot easier for us to be able to swing this panel into place. So I'll just start off with 2 zip ties, 1 there and 1 here. Now I'll just be able to swing this panel to the other panel, which I will attach to with zip ties, as well as to the 2 sides, this middle support and the front or the back of the chicken run. Now that all of our panels are installed, we can walk around our chicken run and tighten up those zip ties to fill any of the gaps. And if we see any big spaces, we can walk around and install some extra zip ties to really seal things up. Once all of your zip ties are on, you can go around with these clippers and just clip off all of the ends to give your chicken run a nice, clean, and finished look. But just looking at it, without even doing anything else, it looks so good, super strong, super durable. Our chickens are absolutely going to love this, and it's going to keep the predators out as well. All of the wall and the roofing panels are on, and you should have 6 of these large panels left. These are for the bottom or the floor of the chicken run. This is going to make it completely predator proof. There are some predators that might try to dig into the chicken run, like foxes, raccoons, or maybe even your home dog. We're going to place these on the bottom of the chicken run, and every single corner, every single little sector should have its own place for us to put these panels down. And when you're installing it in the center of the chicken run, all you'll have to do is lift up the support slightly, and then the panels should slide underneath. Once we have all of our floor panels laid out, we're going to attach them to the structure and one another in the exact same fashion that we attach the panels for the wall. We're going to do 2 zip ties to attach them to the structure, as well as another 2 zip ties to attach them to the adjacent panels. This is going to completely predator-proof the bottom of your chicken run. All of our panels are on, and it's time to install the door. And I love a good Dutch door, which means there is a top hinged portion as well as a bottom hinged portion. So you can open up the top and the bottom in order to go into the chicken run, or if you just want to give your chickens some food or some treats, you can just open up the top and easily be able to just put some food in. So these are really easy to install based on the hinges that we have. The top portion is going to have the Nature Anywhere logo. So this is a good way to distinguish the top from the bottom. We are going to take our bottom piece right here, and it's just going to go and slip into these 2 little holes. And it might take a little bit of maneuvering to get it in because you have to line them both up at the same time. I like to get the bottom one first, and then the top one just slides right in. And now we have our door. We're going to do the exact same thing for the top. Now you can see the beauty of the Dutch door. I could just walk up just like this, put their food and everything in, keep the chickens contained, or you can open up both doors and be able to walk into the chicken run really easily. Now we need to install the latches. Both the top and the bottom latches, they're the exact same. You'll have your gate latch as well as your bolt. And all of the hardware will be in that small hardware bag, which also comes with a screwdriver. So we're going to start by installing our gate latch, and we're going to be using 4 bolts and 4 nuts. We're going to be doing these one at a time, and remember how we installed this bottom panel behind it, which is going to make it easier for this to install. Stick the bolt through the front, and then on the back, we're just going to screw on this little nut. And then we're going to repeat for the 3 other holes. Once you have all of the bolts in place, we're going to go around with a screwdriver and just give everything one last tightening to make sure that these bolts and nuts stay in place. Now we have a nice strong latch. Next is the bolt. This is the exact same process, except the bolt only has 2 holes, and there is some wiggle room in order to move this around to adjust it. So put your bolt through the front, and then we'll secure it up with the nuts in the back. There's one, number 2. You can tighten this down initially. And then we want to make sure that our door shuts. You could see that the bolt is a little bit crooked, so we can use those adjustment holes to make this really nice and tight. And there's also a little wrench that's provided to hold onto the nuts and tighten down the bolts to really get everything locked into place. With the doors installed, we're on to the last step, installing the roof. The roof is made up of an extremely high quality and durable tarp, which is going to keep the weather out, and it's also going to keep the chicken run shaded, which your chickens absolutely love. They need to have some time in order to escape from the elements and the sun to cool down and just rest. And this is fabricated in a very specific way in order to hug the ridge line of the roof. So you'll notice that when you unfold the tarp, there will be these little pockets here, and it's going to fit up to the roof line, and this is going to hug the front of the chicken run and keep it snug and tied down. You're going to need your ladder for this step, and if you have a helper, definitely go get them. It's going to make this process so much easier, but I'll show you how to do it by yourself. The very first thing is we want to just get this tarp onto the roof itself. And make sure that you're putting it on the proper direction. We want those little pockets to hug the corners right here. So I'm gonna throw this one side over, and then I have my little pocket right here. I'll position that exactly where I want it. And then I'm gonna come over to the middle to pull it across the top. And then back down the other side. This process is going to take some time to just maneuver the tarp and get it in the right position. So let's just take some time, get it where we want it, and then we'll tie everything down with our tie straps. I've got the roof line laid out, and if you take a close look at the tarp, there's actually a seam along the whole top here, which helps you understand where it's actually going to sit on the roof ridge. But now that we've got it in the general position, I want to hold these front parts down, which is going to make it easier for me to pull the tarp back over the whole top of the roof. This is where we're going to use our tie straps. And I'm just going to install them on the corners here, just to really keep these down. And the best way to do that is to pull it through, so that way the ball comes in contact with these holes, and then tie it down to the wall panel, so that way it really pulls that roof tarp down. I'm gonna do this across the whole front just to make sure that the front of the roof is tightly supported. Perfect. I'm gonna keep working my way around the roof of the chicken run and tying down the roof with these tie straps until it's nice and tight, making sure it is secure so that way we don't have the roof blowing in the wind, but these tie straps will keep the roof down in all the elements and keep your chickens nice and safe. Well, there you have it. Your chicken run is complete and ready to welcome your feathered friends to their new home. We truly hope that this makes your chicken keeping experience so much more enjoyable, and thank you for choosing Nature Anywhere.